Welcome. My name is Eleanor Peck, and I am a Clean Energy Communities Coordinator for the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program. Thank you for joining HVRC in its second installment of the Hudson Valley Regional Council Clean Energy Communities Institute. The CEC Institute is designed to provide action-oriented webinars, testimonials, in-person cohort-style workshops, and other useful content to support your community's completion of clean energy actions. The recording you are about to view is the second in the series on the NYStretch Energy Code. In the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program, local governments complete actions to earn points and gain eligibility for grants. This presentation is focused on the NYStretch Energy Code High Impact Action. The NYStretch Energy Code is a NYSERDA developed statewide model code for New York jurisdictions to use to meet their energy and climate goals. NYStretch accelerates the savings obtained through local building energy codes. For those communities that adopt it, NYStretch can provide savings of roughly 11% over the 2020 Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State. This high impact action is available to local governments that enforce the uniform code for private buildings. Municipalities that adopt NYStretch and have it take effect by the deadline stipulated in the CEC program guidance document may be eligible for match-free action grants in the amount of $5,000 for small and medium-sized communities of under 40,000 residents, or $50,000 for large communities of 40,000 or more residents. This video case study focuses on the Village of Hastings-on-Hudson's adoption and implementation of NYStretch Energy Code. The village adopted NYStretch on June 17, 2020, and it took effect on June 18, 2020. Hastings-on-Hudson is located on the eastern bank of the Hudson River, about 20 miles north of Midtown Manhattan. The village is a clean energy communities and climate smart communities leader. As of this recording, the village has completed 16 high impact actions, including CSE Silver certification, and received 5,700 leadership round points. You can view the villages and other Mid-Hudson local government accomplishments in the CEC program by visiting the CEC scorecard webpage on the CEC program website. Join me now in learning the village's motivations that led to its adoption of NYStretch and their assessment of how the implementation has been going. From Village Mayor Nicola Armacost and Building Inspector Charles Minozzi.
Nikki Armacost, Mayor, Village of Hastings-on-Hudson.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Charles Minozzi, the Building Inspector in the Village of Hastings-on-Hudson.
Well, we were very excited last year when we learned that the new stretch code was available and being promoted. We thought that it would meet, first of all, our environmental goals, but it had a whole bunch of practical applications. So it would encourage people to using Energy Star equipment, it would encourage efficiency, it would encourage actually long-term energy savings because of the cost reduction, the efficiency and cost reduction. So all of those things were good, and at the same time, we have a group of people who are looking at our green building code, and they saw that there was a really nice synergy here, and so for them, this was a great way of improving the building energy code through adding on this element. So it was a nice confluence of factors and events for us. And we were delighted to be, I think, the second municipality in New York State to pass the NYStretch Energy Code.
What's new and different in this stretch code is when you apply this stretch code as it's written to projects that are major additions, tear downs, new homes, they have to be very diligent in how they encompass the mechanicals in the building envelope. And that's probably the hardest part of the code for people to understand and to implement. But once they understand how to go about implementing it, it's not a shock anymore. It's like, oh, So if I insulate my attic, I can do that. Yes. Oh, okay. And then it makes it a lot easier.
Great.
So that's probably one of the hardest parts, is just getting people to understand what this code is, and that it's not something that is so out of reach or so expensive that it's not going to be cost efficient for them, especially when we explain to them what the payback is. Because the payback on many of these features is very fast, especially when it comes to heat loss in the winters, or cooling loss in the summertime. I would have to say the biggest challenge is education, and making or helping, not making, helping mostly architects and engineers, because when it's a large project, that's who I'm basically dealing with, helping them understand what this code is and what its goal is. And when they start to understand that all of these issues, like I just said, have a payback period, they're much more willing to work with us, and I get much less pushback on implementing it. The new building's a little bit tougher because there's some other things like preparing for charging stations or being solar ready and issues like that. But when you come down to the brass tacks of it, it's running an extra wire, it's putting an extra breaker in the fuse panels to make sure that the excuse me for 1 second, that the mechanicals are big enough to accept the power that's going to be required to do these extra things that are actually going to save money when they're implemented, if they choose to implement them, like solar. Like that's a perfect example. If they choose to go solar, they're ready, and they don't have to upgrade their electrical service. They don't have to. It's done. It's ready. Just get a roof company, get a solar company, put them up, and plug it in. It's that easy, and that's what our hardest part is, making everyone understand that this is not an unachievable or very expensive way to build. It's different.
So what we do, I think, on a village level is we send all sorts of different messages out to the community. So there are mayor's messages explaining, we just passed this resolution, or we just adopted this piece of code. There's that kind of very descriptive information. We've also done in-depth sessions with our Conservation Commission, our Climate Smart Communities Task Force, have done sessions, kind of information sessions for the community. So there's that kind of very general information that gets sent out. And then, of course, there are tools like the website, which has quite specific information. It has, the actual text of the code. It has the actual text of the resolution. And there are fact sheets that have been provided by NYSERDA that are very useful for people so that they can see the rationale. We also had people from NYSERDA come and speak to our Green Building Code team. We had, and actually, Charles knows some of the trainers very well. He's known them for a long time. So that also gave him comfort to know that the people who are promoting this on the NYSERDA side are experts who he's seen at work. And they gave very, very clear presentations, which were persuasive to the Board of Trustees that had to make the decision to adopt this. The rationale was very clearly laid out, and that information is all available to the public on our website. So I think there's really a lot of information that's there for people. There are FAQs. There's a NYSERDA FAQ, which I think is very useful for people, and all of that helps to kind of provide the general framework, and then when people have specific questions, they can go to our team to have those questions answered. And as Charles said, there are various places on the Village website where this material is available, including on the building department website. But he didn't add that what he's also done is a private tutorial for pretty much every contractor who comes in, every architect. He's explaining the things that they need to do that are different. He's explaining why it's not such a big leap. He's explaining the things that are the same. And he's giving those kinds of tutorials himself. And they're in the process of developing this checklist, which will also be on our website, that I think will be very helpful to people so that they can see in a very simple and clear way what they need to do, what's different, what's the same. And will hopefully make the process much easier.
It will. Our checklist, I'm working with other building inspectors in our local communities to build this checklist, these checklists. It's not one, it's going to be a multiple checklist process because it's going to handle large commercial, I shouldn't say large, it's going to handle commercial, full-blown renovation, full-blown single family or multifamily, and then your minor renovation. There's basically going to be 3 parts, and we'll put on our checklist in our heading, we're going to explain what the parameters are for each checklist, so it's not going to be difficult to say, oh my God, which one do I have to use? No, I fall into this category. This is what I have to do, and we're working on that right now, and it's actually coming along pretty good. So, once we were trained on the stretch code, because they did offer us training, which we took, because I had a lot of questions in the beginning too. How am I going to do this? This is going to add to my workload tremendously. I'm going to pull my hair out. It's not. It really isn't. Once we took the training and now I understand, it's so much easier to implement, because most times on on major projects, or what we consider in our small municipality as a major project, which would be a new house or a full blown out renovation, ripped down, something to that effect, or even a multi-dwelling, townhouses. We have those going up now too. I always get to meet with the team beforehand, and I explain to them, you're going to have to design to this criteria, and it's no problem. Where do I find it? Go on the NYStretch website, go on the New York State website, DOS website. It's there. Read it. Understand it. If you have any questions, let me know.
The concern that Charles had about the extra workload, I think, is a very real concern for many building inspectors. And one of the things, and so that was a thing we talked about before we even brought it forward. That was a conversation he and I had. And one of the points that I made was, we all know that the New York code is going to be updated every few years. And so we had an upfront conversation to say, in 3 years, this code is going to be the code. So while the learning curve might be a bit steep now, and it might feel like there's a little bit of an extra burden in terms of learning, you will be smooth sailing for 6 years rather than 3 years. And he bought that argument.
100%. And it was. There was a learning curve, and there was a little extra stress in the office because we had to learn it and know how to adopt and know how to apply it, which the training, again, was phenomenal. It really helped in that switch over. But that was probably the hardest part. And now that I'm so used to it, that it's even easier for me, because now I can explain it to people that don't understand it.
Yeah.
And especially when I explain it in a way of the payback, all their eyes light up and say, oh, really? I'm going to actually save money? Yeah. Not only are you helping save the environment, which I know is like the ultimate goal, but if you break it down per resident, they're looking at their pocketbook.
Yeah.
And this is going to end up, maybe not this year or next year, but in the long term, you're going to be putting extra money in your pocket because you're going to be saving tons of energy.
Thank you for your participation in HVRC's Clean Energy Communities Institute. Visit NYSERDA's website for additional resources and support on the Clean Energy Communities program. And visit HVRC's website to view other CEC Institute programming.